William Kentridge's work looks like thinking made visible. He uses charcoal and paper the way others use words, making mistakes a language rather than a failure. He draws, photographs, erases, and redraws on the same sheet, so the finished frames keep ghosts of what came before. When you watch his films, you are watching choices that refuse to be hidden. That scratch of charcoal is not a flaw, it is testimony. His visual voice grew from Johannesburg's dust and law offices, from a childhood where quiet conversations about injustice lived at the dinner table. He did not shout, he made gestures that demanded attention in a different way. His images breathe with memory and hesitation, and that breathing is the hook, slow, haunting, impossible to ignore. You feel the weight of history in a hand-smudged line. This video is not just about technique, it's about how one artist taught the world to pay attention to the marks people leave behind, and why those marks matter. Johannesburg shaped Kentridge. Born in 1955, he grew up where mines dug deep holes in the earth and where state laws carved deep holes in people's lives. His parents were lawyers who defended people targeted by the system. The family table became an informal classroom about rules used as weapons. Stories of courtrooms and detentions were ordinary dinner conversations. The city's rhythms, the clatter of trams, the smell of dust, the machines surrounding gold entered his imagination and never left. As a child, he drew not to escape, but to watch. Drawing was how he slowed the world down enough to see the lines between what was said and what was done. Those early impressions did not become slogans in his work. They became questions. Who remembers? Who erases? What does it mean to live where memory is fragile? That tension between private pain and public systems is the root of his films and prints. Kentridge's path was not straight. He studied politics, then fine art, and at one time tried theatre. He said later he was a poor actor, but that failure mattered. Acting taught him about timing, silence, and how small movements can carry huge emotional weight. Those lessons migrated into his studio practice. Printmaking gave him discipline. Drawing gave him immediacy. Theatre gave him rhythm. Instead of hiding failed takes, he kept the marks. He realized process could be content. The act of changing an image could itself tell a story. That idea was radical in a world hungry for polished final products. He learned to treat paper like a stage and drawing like a rehearsal. The camera recorded each rehearsal, and the rehearsal became the film. If you want to understand Kentridge, watch the erasures. He draws with charcoal, photographs the sheet, erases part of it, draws again on the same paper, photographs again. The result is a film that keeps traces of earlier marks. Smudges, fingerprints, partial lines stay visible, like memory under skin. This method is more than style. It is a metaphor. History is not clean. Attempts to forget leave stains. The camera acts as both witness and archivist. Charcoal's stubbornness helps. Even after an erasure, a ghost remains. When frames play in sequence, the drawing appears to stumble, hesitate, breathe. Motion here is fragile and human. Throughout his films, two figures recur, Soho Eckstein and Felix Teitelbaum. Soho is the heavy man in a suit, a symbol of corporate comfort and moral distance. Felix is thin, uncertain, often naked in his emotional exposure. They are not villains and heroes. They are two halves of the same landscape. Soho walks through offices and machines, profiting without lifting a shovel. Felix carries memory and doubt, wandering broken landscapes and private rooms. Kentridge uses them not to teach a moral lesson, but to show how personal conscience and public power coexist in a single human being. Their repeated appearances create rhythm across films, a private argument played out in public space. Mine is blunt. Here a man in bed controls machines while workers dig beneath him. The comfort above ground depends on labor below. Kentridge does not dramatize with gore or political slogans. He simply shows the separation. The power of the piece is its restraint, a still bedroom, a quiet switch, and the knowledge of a deep, dangerous mind below. The film forces the viewer to imagine what the suit does not see. This is political critique delivered without shouting. Felix in Exile walks the viewer through a shifting geography. Felix moves through landscapes that change as he approaches. Mountains fade, trees vanish, roads rearrange. The film treats land as a memory that cannot be trusted. Displacement is not only physical, it rewires how a person remembers home. Kentridge resists grand speeches. He gives one man and his private route through a landscape that refuses to stay still. Kentridge never abandoned the object. Films grew from paper experiments, but the flat works stand on their own. Large-scale charcoal drawings, prints with rough edges, and sketchbooks full of study pages are central to his practice. Galleries that collect his work are not only buying an idea, they are buying the material record of the thinking process. When people walk into a room with his drawings on the wall, they notice the dust, the gestures, the hand marks, the evidence of making. Kentridge's rise was not instant. For years, his work felt out of step with trends. The art market often favored glossy finishes and clear statements, while his films were hesitant and his drawings messy. He questioned relevance and worried that drawing might be outmoded, yet he persisted. His commitment to process, to staying rooted in material and place, eventually became his strength. As institutions sought artists with depth and a practice that rewarded repeated viewings, Kentridge's slow, layered work found an audience. With the Refusal of Time, Kentridge moved beyond the single sheet and built environments. The installation uses sound, mechanical devices, projected images, and objects to argue that time itself is political. Clocks and scientific instruments in the piece act like colonial tools that ordered lives. Visitors move through rooms where sound and motion force them to consider how time is measured and enforced. This was a leap from intimate drawings to a theatrical architecture of ideas, but it retained his hand. You still sense smudges, human breath, and the labor of making. Recognition came. Venice, MoMA, Tate, major retrospectives, operas, and stage designs. Yet Kentridge's studio kept its modesty. He continued to use humble materials while institutions amplified his voice. Why did the world listen? Because his work resists easy answers. It rewards return visits. Under bright museum lights, the ghosted marks continue to reveal new traces. That durability, the capacity to deepen rather than flatten with repeated viewing, is what made institutions value his work. Kentridge's art asks a simple, difficult thing. Look at what remains after erasure. He invites us to accept that memory is messy, that guilt and tenderness can share a face, and that process is not a scandal, but evidence. For an audience used to instant conclusions, his films are an exercise in patience. For artists, his life suggests a path. Stay curious, let mistakes speak, and let your materials carry your questions.